Hi everybody, good morning. Today we have been seen about the topic on heat treatment. Heat treatment is defined as the operation involving the heating or cooling of a metal or an alloy in a solid state to obtain certain desirable properties without changing composition. Let's go into the topic. Heat treatment. Heat treatment may be defined as the operation or combination of operation involving heating and cooling of a metal or a metal alloy in a solid state to obtain a desired condition like relative stress and properties. The heat treatment consists of heating the metal near or above its critical temperature held for a particular time and then finally cooling the metal in some medium which may be air, water or molten salts. The heat treatment process included annealing, case hardening, tempering, normalizing, quenching, nitrating or cyaniding, etc. There are the purpose of heat treatment are to relieve the internal stress during cold working, welding, casting that improve the machinability of a material. Next, the change in grain size of a material improve the ductility and homogeneous structure of a material. Cooling rate also plays an important role. Slow cooling produces a pearlite structure and rapid cooling produces a marten stick structure. The heat treatment processes has been three types: the softening processes, hardening processes, surface hardening processes. In softening processes, annealing, normalizing. In hardening processes, hardening, tempering. In surface hardening processes, there are cyaniding, nitrating, case hardening, like that happen. First, we have seen about annealing. Annealing is the process of operation in heat treatment. The iron and steel at 30 to 50 degrees Celsius above the upper critical temperature and cooling it at a very slow rate by seeking it in the furnace. The main aim of annealing is to make the steel more ductile, malleable and remove the internal stresses. Next, the normalizing. The main aim of normalizing is to remove the internal stresses developed after the cold working processes. In this, steel is heated at 30 to 50 degrees Celsius above its upper critical temperature and cooling it in the air. Next one is hardening. The main aim of the hardening process is to make the steel very hard, tough. In this process, the steel is heated at 30 degree to 40 degrees Celsius above the upper critical temperature and then followed by cooling to a room temperature by quenching in water or oil. It is the opposite process of annealing. Next one is tempering. Tempering, when the hardening process hardens a steel specimen, it becomes brittle and has high residual stress. It is an operation used to modify the properties of steel, hardened by quenching for the purpose of increasing the usefulness. Tempering process results in reduction of brittleness and removal of internal stress caused during the hardening. Steel must be tempered after the hardening processes. Next one is the surface hardening process. The surface hardening process is the process of making the surface of a metal very hard and the internal core should be soft. The first one is nitrating. By introducing a nitrogen gas in the surface of a material to obtain the hard skin, the nitrogen atom deposited and makes a material hard. Next one is cyaniding. In this process, the presence of sodium cyanide in the heated steel, due to this, carbon and nitrogen atoms are deposited in the surface of the steel and make it hard. Next one is carburizing. In this process, the steel is heated in the presence of carbon in the environment. Due to this, carbon atoms are deposited on the metal surface and make it hard. What is the purpose of heat treatment? To improve the mechanical properties, improve the machinability, change of the grain sizes, improve the magnetic and the electrical properties, and increase the resistance of wear and corrosion, and increase the surface hardness. Let us see the flow chart. In this, annealing, normalizing, hardening, case hardening will happen. First of all, annealing. Full annealing, stress annealing and sulfidizing are the types. Normalizing is the single stage heat treatment process. In this hardening and tempering, conventional hardening and tempering, ash tempering, mark tempering will be processes. In gas hardening, carburizing, cyaniding, nitrating, carbonitrating, flame hardening, induction hardening, electron beam hardening, laser beam hardening are the properties. In this graph, we can see what are all the changes and transformations of the carbon steels or ions happened in the 910 degrees Celsius to 720 to 3 degrees Celsius. In this process annealing, isothermal annealing, periodizing, full annealing are also happens. In this graph, we can see the annealing, hardening and normalizing of an object. Next, we move on to the annealing process. Annealing is the process of heating the steel slightly above the critical temperature of steel, about 723 degrees Celsius, and allowing it to cool down very slowly. The purpose of annealing is to soften the steel and improve its machinability, then to refine the grain size and remove the gases. It also removes the internal stresses developed during the previous processes to obtain the desired ductility, malleability, toughness. The procedure of annealing process. The procedure of annealing process, depending upon the carbon content, the steel is heated to a temperature of about 50 to 55 degrees Celsius above its critical temperature rate. It is held at this temperature for a definite period of time depending on the type of furnace and nature work. The steel is then allowed to cool inside the furnace constantly. The applications of annealing will happen in castings and forging process. The physical properties. Annealed metals are relatively soft and can be cut and shaped more easily. They bend easily when pressure is applied. As a rule, they are heated and allowed to cool slowly. The types of annealing is full annealing, process annealing, stress relief annealing, periodizing annealing, isothermal annealing. Full annealing. The process involves the heating the steel to 30 to 50 degrees centigrade above the critical temperature of steel and maintaining the temperature for a specific period of time, then allowing material to slowly cool down inside the furnace itself without any forced means. Hot worked sheets, forgings and castings are made. In this graph, we can see about that the temperature increased and the carbon content changes during the full annealing process in the heat treatment. The process annealing is used to treat the work hardened parts and made out of low carbon steels. This allows the parts to be soft enough and to undergo the further cold working without fracturing. This temperature is about 727 degrees Celsius. Heating is about 700 degrees Celsius should be sufficient. Isothermal annealing. This is a process where steel is heated above the upper critical temperature. This causes the structure of steel to be converted rapidly into austenite structure. The steel is then cooled temperature below the lower critical temperature, about 600 to 700 degrees centigrade. The cooling is done using forced cooling means. Next process of heat treatment is normalizing. It is mainly applied to achieve a higher hardness strength. In this process, the temperature is raised upper critical temperature. Under this temperature, the structure is converted into austenite and removed from the furnace. Then it is cooled under a natural convection at controlled room temperature. This results in a grain structure of a fine perlite with excess of ferrite or cementite. This degree of softness of a material in this process is mainly depends upon the cooling condition. The purpose of normaling is to produce a harder and stronger steel than full annealing, to improve the machinability, to modify and refine the grain structure, to obtain a relatively good ductility without reducing the hardness and strength. So today we have been seen about the heat treatment. In this heat treatment, what are all the various types we has been discussed. In this we have deeply discussed about the normalizing, and the annealing and their types. Thank you everyone.